this week, I explain it later in the video, I was a little bit ill. Eddie to me now is still a bit croaky, but feeling a lot better. So a lot of this video is just voiceover. And for this project, I wanted to learn a new skill, which I've wanted to learn for a very long time, which is bookbinding. And the inspiration for this is River Song's Diary from Doctor Who, the little blue TARDIS shaped book, basically. So yeah, I decided I was going to make that this week. Took me a little bit longer than a week because, as I explained later in the video, I haven't been very well. But with that aside, I started just by folding my signatures, and I think I made 10 of those. I don't remember doing it. It was a while ago. Here are my 10. I then made a template to punch the holes in for sewing. Then when I'd made the template, I cut the pages all to the same size. I used A4 printer paper for this, and I wanted the book to be slightly closer to the size of the original, which is about 7 by 4 inches. At the time I started working in inches because that's the rule I had. It ended up biting me in the backside, so I did have to change things slightly towards the end, but I just used a sharp Stanley knife to cut through the pages a few at a time. When I'd done the sides, which were 4.5, not 4, I've just remembered, I then cut the top so it was 7 inches. Then when I'd cut all the pages to the right size, I used that template I made earlier and just a little owl and poked the holes through the signatures so I could stitch them together. The stitching was a complete disaster, but I'll cross that bridge when we get there. So with all the holes punched, I started off just by using some thin cotton sewing thread from my sewing machine because I had it on hand and it blended in. That ended up not working. I gave it 2 attempts and it didn't work. It just kept tangling and snapping. So I then went to some slightly thicker embroidery thread and that ended up working fine. Here you get to see me fail several times before getting it right. Just a funny little blooper. It was about here where this one just failed and the thread snapped. I don't think I recorded the second one because this is me trying with the slightly thicker embroidery thread and this worked so much better. The stitch I did was called a French chain link, I believe. I will link the video I used as a tutorial for this underneath. That I wouldn't have managed it without the video, so credit goes to the maker of the video. This is just me giving it a crack, and it didn't turn out perfect, spoilers, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. The only issue I had using the embroidery thread is it kept undoing its knot at the end, which could just be because I hadn't done it well enough. But I just occasionally had to keep retying the thread at the top, which isn't an issue. I also ended up using a smaller length and doing it twice and knotting it in the middle because I just found that having a really long length was just shooting me in the foot. Hello, real-time me here. I ended up finishing the stitching just off camera. I've had a bit of a rough week this week, so I'm aware that filming is slightly not great. A little insight, in the past couple of days, have broken one of my toes, ripped a hole inside my right thumb, and have come down with some kind of quite bad sick bug. And I'm also in a lot of pain with other things. So when it took me 3 attempts to do the stitching on this, I kind of just gave in and thought, I'm doing it off camera. But with that done, the block is now bound. It's not as tight as it perhaps could be. You can still open it up, but for my first time I've made a book, I am overly impressed with that. So I don't know if I've mentioned at this point, I'm all a bit disjointed. I'm watching a single YouTube video, so I am an expert. But the next thing they do is they glue the spine. So I need to make some boards by taping the edges, and then I need to clamp it and glue it. So I'm going to go back to voice over me if I need to say anything, and just crack on with this in the time lapse because I am not well enough to be a host at the minute. So here I just used some of the same cardboard material that I was going to use for the covers anyway, and just ran a line of tape, a couple of pieces of tape over the top of it so that I could clamp that and glue it, and it would minimise the amount of chance that the pages would stick to the cardboard. With the boards taped, I then just lined up the book block with the 2 taped sides of the boards. I had to retape one of the bits of the boards because it wasn't quite right. And then I just slid it to the end of the table and clamped it so that it was nice and firm. And then I ran a nice thin layer of glue over the top of it. So it's the next day. I'm feeling slightly better. So I'm going to give this hosting thing another try. The book is bound and all glued at the back. It's come out fairly well. It's not perfect, but for the first time I've done it, I'll absolutely take it. So, next step, I need to cut the end papers. Now I just bought this sheet of fairly thick paper, bordering on thin card, from local craft shop. I think it was $1.50 a sheet. Nice and cheap. And if I was to want to make this again, which I kind of do, because I want one as well, I can make plenty out of it. So I need to cut these basically to the size of these papers, so I'm going to quickly do that on time lapse just for the two, and then I'll be back when it comes time to actually attaching them. So I've cut my two sheets, and I just need to fold them in half. They're not perfect, but they should be slightly bigger, and I do intend on cutting the book down just a little bit more before I actually bind it, just to get rid of any rough edges and to sand it. So there I have my two end sheets, and as you can see they are longer, so I can cut off a bit extra if I need. So the next step is to actually glue these end pages onto the book main bit. I can't remember the main words for it. So what I need to do is tape it on the spine side, the folded side, and apply just a little bit of glue onto the blue. I'm going to just quickly stick the masking tape on my joggers and peel it off so it removes the majority of the tack, so I don't want it to risk ripping the paper. This is a trick I learned at college. So, on my folded side, I think the video said 3mm, which is about that, I think. And then we just apply a little bit of glue onto that 3mm edge. I should really use a paintbrush, but I don't have one on hand, so I'm going to just use my finger. And then with that glued, we can remove the tape. We'll use that on the other side. I'm just going to tape it, glue it, lined up with the spine as best as we can. There we go. And then we're just going to repeat that for the other side. So now that it's glued again, I'm going to put it back between the taped cardboard pages just to stop it sticking, because I did mess up a little bit with one of the glue ups. So I'm going to line it back up so that the tape is next to the glue, so it will peel off easier. And then just to make sure that the glue cures as best as possible, I'm going to put the clamps back on it. There we go. I'm now going to do some jobs around the house and let that dry, and I'll come back in about an hour or two when it's nice and dry. So it's been a while. I had a holiday in the country. I just had a week. I needed a week. I had a week. I feel a lot better having had just a bit of a break. But cracking on with it. While I was away, I wanted to try and go to a fabric shop to try and find some blue fabric. Didn't end up managing that. But I did remember I had a tablecloth that used to be, I think it was my grandma's, and I had cut bits out of it in the past for projects. It was a nice blue, which for Riversong's diary, perfect. So what I need to do first is make the headband and tailband, which this is just an offcut of the rest of it. The rest of it's there. That's just wrapped around the book to make sure it was big enough. To do that, all I'm going to use is an offcut of the fabric and this cord, which I got from a craft shop. I think it was £1 a metre, was on sale. I'm going to just do across there and fold the fabric over so that the twine string stuff is in that loop, and I'm going to peg it while it dries. Basically, I'm going to just glue that. I could possibly sew it as well, but I don't have a cording foot for my sewing machine, so I'm going to just do it with glue and clips. I'm going to time lapse that because it's probably going to be a bit faffy, and I'll come back when that's done. So I've got the end bands gluing, just put them out the way. My next thing I was going to prepare was for the bookmark. Now I got this ribbon, and it's a nice blue, goes well with the other shades of blue, because ideally I would have liked to have all got the same. Wasn't able to do that because I've scrounged a bit, but slight issue. It's not actually focusing. There we go. It's a lot thicker than the spine of the book, and if you do it that way, you're going to have a large overhang. So what I've done, I've taken the length of this that I need, and I've just folded it in on itself, so it's thinner. It's actually thinner than the spine now, but I think that should be fine. And I'm going to just whiz this through the sewing machine. I think I'm going to use a nice gold, so it's not all completely blue. And then that is going to get stuck onto the spine. And then I'm going to work on the cover because I'm waiting on something for the making the book cloth. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to work on the actual hard covers for the book. But first, if it wants to actually focus, it's time to do the sewing of the bookmark. So I'll quickly do that. I'm not going to record it because it's one straight stitch. I'll be back when I come to glue it on. I'm back. I went for a shopping trip, but in that time the headband and tailband has dried, and so has the bookmark. So that's on there nice and secure now. The next thing I'm going to do, and probably the last thing today, because it is scorching hot today, and I just want to sit in the sun, wishing I had a pool or I was on holiday. Just sit and enjoy the weather because it's lovely. It's this hot. I will put something here for how hot it is at the minute, but it's bonkers. Not me being a classic British person and unable to tolerate temperature in the slightest. But before I go and enjoy the lovely weather and call it for the rest of the day, I need to cut this to the right size and then stick it on. That's basically all I want to achieve for the rest of the day. I might this evening do some cutting of the the material for the actual covers, but I'm going to just start by cutting this neat like that, and I need to work out how big it needs to be. I'm going to just cut that. Don't know if you can see it. Yeah, should just be able to see what I'm doing. There. And cut, and then same again. So that is about 1 centimetre. So I'm going to just use my mat, the measurements on my mat, to cut another one that's about 1 centimetre. There we go. And then that's where I'm going to keep hold of that. I'm going to make a box for bookbinding stuff that will have like the boards with the tape on and ribbons and things, cords that I've used for making books, and that can go in because I don't, so far I've loved this. I don't intend on this being the last one I do. So last thing I'm going to do for today, as I said, is glue these on, and they just go at the top like so with a bit more of the glue, and I'm going to clamp them. But I'm going to do that off camera because it's just too hot and I'm struggling. So I will see you later on when it's cooler to do some cutting of cardboard. So this is the combination of pieces that I ended up cutting. Went for a slightly different design, but it still has the what's the word? Come on, brain. The overall sort of it gives off River Song's Diary, basically. I think. We will see. I hope it does. So I'm going to just use some PVA glue to stick those on where I've shaded in so you can see what's what. And then, yeah, I'll need to make another one. But I'll worry about that one when this one's done. God, this is taking it out of me. Good morning. It's the next day. It's done. But because of how much of a pain it was to figure out all the measurements and sticking it and the amount of time I had to do it, I ended up just doing the other one off camera. Oh, thank God they're done. Last bit for cutting card, I need to make the spine bit. And I think the video said to do that, you measured the width of the spine plus one of the covers. Where's my rule? So for me, that is about 13mm, and then you cut a piece of cardboard, same grey board stuff, that's however wide you need it by however long you need it. So I'm going to quickly do that, and then it's time to make some book cloth, I do believe. So I ended up making the book cloth off camera because I'm just cautious. This video is already half an hour long, and that was a full 10 minutes worth of footage, which I couldn't be bothered whistling down. This is just me talking about how I needed to basically cut a little bit of the cover off to make it fit the book. I ended up just taking off a thin sliver on either side. In the end, it didn't end up impacting it too much at all. So this bit, I got a bit stressed. I just needed it to work. I'd put a lot of time and effort into it. I just discussed how I'd measured out the material. Now that I'd removed a bit more of the covers, I wasn't as worried about it not fitting. But I still was worried about fitting it into all the cracks and crevices of the cover because the video does a 2D cover and mine's a bit more dimensional. But I ended up just gluing it all together and it went from there. Right, I'm back. It's glued. I need to go quick because I can tell it's already starting to dry. So I'm going to put my hinge gap down and then I'm going to line up, making sure I've got it the right way, my cover. And then I'm going to remove my hinge gap, put on some pressure, and then what the video tutorial I was watching didn't do was do a 3D design. So I'm going to pull it over and just use my finger to push in the gaps between all of the panels. Like so. So I'm going to go back into time lapse to finish this because I need to get this done before the glue starts to dry, and then when this is done I'll come back and evaluate. So this last little bit of time lapse is just me doing it to this side and the other side. What I ended up doing after giving it all a good press down was I put a tea towel on it just to fill the gaps and then some weight. I did this to the other side as well. It worked fine and I'm happy with how it turned out. In this clip, I just cut the corners in any places where it needed to be and glued the edges and folded over the edges so it was nice and neat. And just like that, my camera fell over, so I ended up just finishing it and then deleting that bit of footage. The last step was gluing on the other covers, the book into the covers, sorry. I did one of them completely off camera just to line it up, because I needed to concentrate on that. I then ran a line of glue across the spine and the back cover, folded it shut and sandwiched it and let it dry under clamps. And with that, it's time for the reveal. So, quick reveal, I have never actually been prouder of a project than I have of this one. I absolutely adore it. I will be making another one because this one is a gift. Working out the cost of what it cost me to make it, it only cost me about £3. So, that's pretty impressive. I would strongly recommend giving it a try, even if it doesn't go well. It's a good thing to just have some fun with. And with that, that's it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!